I want you to picture this with me for a second. I'm standing on a rooftop in Atlanta. The sun just dipped behind the buildings and everything is glowing gold. There's soft music playing. Waiters in black are floating around with little glasses of champagne, and every single table is covered in cream-colored peonies and trailing eucalyptus that I arranged with my own two hands earlier that day. I'm wearing a soft, camel-colored slip dress. Simple, smooth, the kind my mama used to call quiet money. Gold hoops in my ears, a thin chain on my neck, bare face except for a soft brown lip. I'm not trying to stand out. I'm trying to do my job, smile at the bride-to-be, and slip out before dessert. And then I hear her voice. A woman in a tight, glittering dress walks up to me with a glass of champagne in her hand, diamond earrings swinging, hair sprayed so stiff it didn't move when the wind came through. She looks me up and down, slow, like she's measuring me. And she says, loud enough for half the rooftop to hear, "Oh, honey, you really came like that to my engagement party?" The whole room went quiet. I mean it. Glasses paused mid-air. People stopped chewing. Now, before I tell you what I said back to her, you need to understand something. That woman wasn't just rude. That woman was the new wife of the man who used to be my husband, and she had no idea who I really was or what I was about to walk into that room with. My name is Imari Bellamy. I'm 27 years old, and this is the night that changed everything. Let me back up. I was raised in Charleston, South Carolina, by a single mama who cleaned houses for rich families on the historic side of town. She'd come home with her hands raw and her feet swollen, and she'd still cook me dinner, still braid my hair, still read me one chapter of a book before bed. My mama was a small woman, but she had this voice, soft but steady. She used to tell me, "Baby, never let anybody tell you who you are in a room you helped build." I didn't fully understand what she meant back then. I do now. She passed away when I was 23. Cancer. Quiet the way she lived. She left me two things, a small life insurance check and a little wooden box of pressed flowers she'd collected from every house she ever cleaned. Roses, magnolias, gardenias, hydrangeas, all dried, all labeled in her handwriting. That box is the reason I'm a florist today. I moved to Atlanta when I was 22, started doing wedding flowers out of my apartment, then out of a tiny garage space, and now I have a real boutique studio off a quiet street. It's not flashy, it's not on Instagram every day, but the people who know, know. Brides find me through whispers, not ads. That's the kind of business I built. Quiet, like my mama. I met Tucker Whitefield when I was 24. He walked into my studio one afternoon to pick up an arrangement for his sister's birthday. Tall, white American, mid-30s, those kind of polished good looks that come from generations of money and tennis lessons. His family is old Connecticut money. They own a chain of high-end horse breeding estates up in New England. Real, we summer in the Hamptons type of people. He stood in my studio for 40 minutes that day. Said he loved how the place smelled, said he loved how I talked about flowers, said he'd never met anyone like me. I should have heard that for what it was. Never met anyone like me is sometimes a compliment, and sometimes it's a warning. But I was 24, and he was charming, and he was persistent. Showed up with coffee, took me to dinners I couldn't pronounce, told me his family would come around. We got married a year later. Small courthouse wedding. His family didn't come. He said his mama was sick. I found out later she was at a charity gala that same night. I should have left then, but I loved him. Or I loved who I thought he could be. The first year was beautiful. The second year, his mother started dropping by. Comments about my hair, comments about my cooking, asking me, sweet as pie, if I'd ever thought about straightening that mane of yours, dear, just for special occasions. Tucker stopped defending me. Then he started agreeing with her. Quietly at first, a little laugh here, a "Mama, be nice" that didn't really mean stop. The marriage ended without a fight. He came home one Tuesday night, sat on the edge of our bed, and said, "I don't think we're the same kind of people anymore, Imari." I didn't argue, I just nodded, because deep down I'd been waiting for him to finally say the thing he'd been showing me for a year. We divorced 2 years ago. He kept the house, I kept my studio. I kept my dignity. I kept my mama's wooden box of pressed flowers. And I told myself I'd never set foot in that family's world again. So how did I end up on that rooftop, you ask? Greer. Greer Whitfield Ashby is Tucker's cousin, and Greer is one of the few people in that family who actually saw me, who actually loved me, who called me on my birthday after the divorce and said, "Imari, you are still my family, and I don't care what they think." When Greer got engaged 6 months ago, she called me crying, not sad crying, happy crying. And she said, "Imari, please, I want you to do my flowers, the engagement party, the wedding, all of it. Nobody does it like you." I almost said no. I knew Tucker would probably be there, but Greer is the kind of friend you don't say no to. Family in the way that matters, the chosen kind. So I said yes. What I didn't know, what nobody told me, was that Tucker had already remarried 8 months in to a woman named Brinley, and Brinley had heard all about me. The day of the engagement party, I got to the rooftop venue at noon, spent 6 hours arranging every centerpiece, every garland, every petal in the bridal bouquet trial. By the time the guests started arriving at 7, the place looked like a dream, my dream. I was supposed to be done by then, just say hi to Greer, get a hug, and leave. I walked over to Greer in my soft camel dress. She was glowing. White silk, blonde hair pinned up, that "I am getting married soon" kind of smile. We hugged. She told me the flowers were perfect. She told me I looked beautiful. Then her face shifted. "Imari," she said, lowering her voice, "there's something I should have told you." Before she could finish, I felt a presence behind me. I turned around, and there was Tucker, with a woman on her arm. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. He stuttered for a second, then gathered himself and said, "Imari, hey, wow, I didn't know you'd be here." The woman on his arm tilted her head, tall, blonde, sharp cheekbones, a red dress so tight it was practically a second skin, diamonds at her ears, her wrist, her neck. She looked at me with this little curious smile like she was watching an animal at the zoo. Tucker cleared his throat. "Imari, this is my wife, Brinley. Brinley, this is Imari." Brinley's smile got wider. "Oh," she said, "so you're Imari." The way she said my name, like it had air quotes around it, like she'd been saying it in conversations I wasn't in. I just smiled, polite as I could. "Nice to meet you. Congratulations on the marriage." I excused myself. For the next hour, I tried to do my job and stay invisible. I checked on the bar arrangement. I refilled the petal scatter on the head table. I sipped sparkling water and stayed near the edge of the rooftop. But Brinley kept circling. Every time I looked up, she was nearby, with one of her friends, talking just a little too loud. I just don't understand the appeal of plain little dresses, do you? Some women really don't know how to dress for a venue like this. You'd think if you were going to show up to a Whitfield event, you'd at least try. I heard every word. She wanted me to. I kept my face soft, my breathing steady. My mama always said anger is a gift you give to people who don't deserve it. I wasn't about to give Brinley mine. But then she did the thing that made the whole rooftop go quiet. She walked right up to me, with her champagne, with her audience. She looked at me up and down slow, the way you look at something you're about to throw away, and she said it. "Oh, honey, you really came like that to my engagement party?" Now, the old me, the 24-year-old me, the wife of Tucker me, she would have shrunk. She would have apologized for taking up space. She would have made an excuse and slipped out the back door and cried in her car. But that woman died 2 years ago, the night I signed those divorce papers and drove home alone. The woman standing on that rooftop in the camel slip dress was somebody else. I took a small breath. I smiled, calm, soft, the kind of soft that has steel underneath it. And I said, "Brinley, sweetie, first, this isn't your engagement party. It's Greer's. Second, I wasn't invited as a guest. I'm the florist." I let that sit for a second. Every flower in this room came from my hands, including the ones in your hair. Brinley's hand went up to her hair without her meaning to. There were 3 little cream peony buds tucked into her updo. I'd made that piece myself 2 days ago in my studio. The rooftop went so quiet I could hear the ice in somebody's glass. Brinley's smile cracked. "You're the florist?" "Mm-hmm," I said. "Greer hired me 6 months ago, before you and Tucker were even married, I believe." Somebody behind me let out a little laugh, the kind of laugh that escapes before you can stop it. Brinley's face went red under her makeup. She turned to Tucker, who was standing about 10 feet away, frozen with his drink halfway to his mouth. "Tucker," she said, her voice thinner than before, "you didn't tell me she was the one doing the flowers?" Tucker opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I didn't know." "You didn't know your ex-wife was doing the flowers at your cousin's engagement party?" "Brinley, can we not do this here?" But she wasn't done. She turned back to me, trying to recover. "Well, I just meant the dress is a bit, casual for an event like this." That's when Greer stepped in. Greer Whitfield Ashby, in her white silk dress with her engagement ring catching every light on that rooftop, walked right up beside me, slid her arm through mine, and looked Brinley dead in her face. "Brinley," Greer said. Her voice was sharp, family voice sharp, the kind of voice that doesn't get used until somebody crosses a line. "Brinley, that's enough." Brinley blinked. "I was just—" "Imari is my friend," Greer said. "She is one of the most talented florists in the South. She designed every single thing you have been complimenting all night. The arch you took your photos under, the bouquet you held for the camera, the flowers in your hair. All of it." Brinley's mouth moved, but nothing came out. "And the dress she's wearing is more elegant than anything in this room, including mine." I squeezed Greer's arm. I didn't trust myself to talk yet. Brinley's friends, the little group she'd been performing for, suddenly got very interested in their drinks. One of them stepped backwards. Another one pretended to take a phone call. That's when she walked over. Mrs. Hollis Whitfield. If you don't know that name, let me explain. Mrs. Hollis is Tucker's great-aunt. She is in her 70s. She has white hair pulled back in a low bun, pearls that have been in her family for 4 generations, and the kind of money that doesn't post about itself on the internet. Real money. Old money. The Whitfield family fortune sits in her hands. What she says goes. She had never warmed to me when I was Tucker's wife, polite but distant. I always assumed she was like the rest of them, but she walked across that rooftop slow and steady in a navy dress and a single string of pearls and stopped right in front of me. She took my hand. Her fingers were thin and cool. "My dear," she said, "your work is exquisite, as always. I told Greer she made the right choice. Some things in this family have always had taste." She paused. "And some things have just had volume." She didn't look at Brinley. She didn't have to. The rooftop made a sound, a collective breath, half a laugh, half a gasp. Mrs. Hollis kissed my cheek and walked back to her table. Brinley looked like she'd been slapped. She tried to laugh it off, tried to wave her hand and say something light, but her voice was shaking. Then she just turned and walked toward the exit fast in those tall heels. Tucker followed her. I heard them in the hallway. I think the whole rooftop did. Brinley's voice, sharp and loud, asking him, "You told me she was nobody. You said she was just some little—" I didn't catch the last word. I didn't want to. I went back to checking my arrangements. My hands were a little shaky, but my back was straight. Greer found me a few minutes later by the dessert table. Her eyes were wet. "Imari," she said, "I am so sorry. I should have warned you about her. I just didn't think she would actually—" I stopped her. "Greer, I'm okay. I really am. That woman didn't humiliate me. She humiliated herself. I just happened to be standing there." Greer let out a little laugh that was half a sob and pulled me into a hug. About 20 minutes later, Tucker came back, alone. He found me near the dessert table. He looked older than I remembered him, tired, like the night had aged him 5 years in 1 hour. "Imari," he said, soft, "I'm so sorry. She didn't know who you were." I looked at him for a long moment, and I said, soft but clear, "Tucker, that's the saddest part. She didn't know who I was because you didn't know who I was. Not really. She just married the version of you that never figured it out." He didn't have an answer. He stood there for a second, then tried something else, his old move, the nostalgia move. "You look beautiful tonight," he said. "You always did." I gave him a small smile. "I know I do," I said. "I knew it then, too. I just needed to stop waiting for you to notice." I walked away. I didn't look back. I left around 10, hugged Greer, thanked Mrs. Hollis, loaded the last of my supplies into my van. The drive home was quiet, windows down, a slow song playing, Atlanta lights blurring past. I felt this calm in my chest I hadn't felt in years. I thought about my mama. I thought about being 12 years old, watching her iron her own funeral dress one Sunday afternoon, just in case, and saying to me, "Baby, never let anybody tell you who you are in a room you helped build." I finally understood what she meant. That rooftop tonight, every stem, every petal, every candle, I helped build that room, with my hands, with my craft, with my name. Brinley walked in there tonight thinking she owned it. She didn't even know who'd planted the garden. Here is what I learned, and what I hope you take with you tonight. People who need to make you small in public are usually shrinking in private. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful one. A soft voice and a steady spine will outlast a designer dress and a sharp tongue every single time. And a woman who has been quietly building her life for years will always be more dangerous in a room than a woman who just walked into it. My mama was right. Quiet money, quiet grace, quiet power. I pulled into my driveway just after 11, sat in my car for a minute with the engine off, just looking at my front porch, the little porch I bought with my own money, the little life I built with my own hands. I smiled to myself. That night, Brinley Whitfield asked me if I really came dressed like that, and I did. I came dressed like a woman who built her own life with her own 2 hands. I came dressed like my mama's daughter. I came dressed like myself. And I'd come like that every single time. If you have ever been underestimated in a room you helped build, do me a favor and drop a "I felt this" down in the comments. I want to know I'm not the only one. And if this story moved you, you already know what to do. Stick around. I've got more where this came from. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, you don't have to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes the quietest woman in the room is the one holding it all together.